you all so much for having me here today. So, as Carolyn mentioned, I actually was a Rotarian at my first library management job in Battle Ground, Washington. So it was the Woods River Rotary.
Hooray! I'm glad to hear
that. But yeah, so I have to say that coming to this meeting today, I love all of the aspects of the meeting, like, you know, the announcements and the giving of the money. Like, it brings back so many memories because I did that every morning, every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Wow. So I do think I need a little credit for that. This lunchtime meeting is actually really lovely. It's a lovely space, lovely people. So thank you so much for having me today. So I just do have a few slides that I want to share with you, and mostly I'll talk, but I may need to use my notes because I've been in this role for 2.5 months, so I don't always have all the facts straight just yet. Just give me some time, I will. But this is what I like to call, or who I like to call Little Kimmy. So this is actually where I started my library advocacy career. So this picture was in the Tampa Tribune in probably 1980. I think I was 3 years old. And I was at a library story time. It was a pajama story time. My mom's best friend was a librarian, so I was a library user from a very early age. And I like to keep this picture close at hand because it reminds me of where I started. I've always been a lover of books. I moved around as a kid a lot. I always really liked going to the library, getting my library card. I really felt like I was a part of the community when I could get my library card wherever we lived, whether it was South Carolina or Virginia. And of course, I've lived in other parts of the country. So yeah, I think it's fun to see where people started. I went to a presentation at the Public Library Association a couple weeks ago, and one of the presenters showed a bunch of pictures of herself as a child when she did her introduction, and I was like, well, that's fun, and that's not really a way that you get to see people very often. So I thought it was a fitting way to kind of kick this off and start to tell you all about myself. So I actually haven't always been a librarian. I worked in commercial real estate when I graduated from college with my degree in English, and most people with a degree in English are like, what should I do? Well, I fell into real estate. And I did that for many years. I did site selection for Starbucks Coffee Company. I worked for Colliers International. And one day I was sitting at my desk and I said, you know what, this is glamorous and fun, but it doesn't really make me happy. If I could work anywhere, where would that be? And I mean, I sat there for a minute and I was like, well, the library, of course. So I went to library school having never worked in a library. I show up, 6 years later, I paid for school as I went along. And I showed up at my first library job, and it was the best decision that I have ever made. I am so grateful to this day that I get to do this every single day. Working with the public has really shaped who I am as a person, and I'm so grateful for all the experiences that I have had. So I worked out on the West Coast. I've been in Connecticut for 6 years. I most recently was the director at Berlin Pack, and I am delighted to be here in New Canaan serving all of you. So one thing I'll say that I like most about being a librarian is kind of that aha moment that you have when you're working with a patron, or even like coming here and talking to all of you, because I'm sure there's going to be something that you are going to learn today about the library that you just didn't realize before. And I love that because the library is so many things to so many people, and our building here in New Canaan is just really such a gem. So I hope you all have had a chance to visit the new library. Does everybody have a library card? Awesome. And I see maybe the next time I come, and I'm sorry I didn't bring some library cards with me today, but I am known to carry library cards in my pocket and give them out. So I'll bring some next time for sure. So you probably all know a lot about our library building project that we did. Our building was completed on time and on budget. We are very proud of that. Our building is about 40,000 square feet. We have a living room, which is pictured here. We also have a demonstration kitchen. We have the auditorium. We have 7 meeting spaces. We have the Bartlett Terrace. We have the Anderson Terrace. Our library has so many unique features about it that many libraries around the country don't even have. And We are incredibly proud of this building. So as you know, we received a grant for $10 million from the town of New Canaan, and then generous donors provided the additional $30 million that we needed to build this building. And it is absolutely spectacular. I have attended a lot of meetings regionally. I read publications that are related to the library industry, and this library has been featured in American Libraries magazine. I just saw a presentation by Alex Isley, who is a graphic designer, and he was using this building capital campaign project as a highlight to his career. So I think a lot of people know this library for different reasons, and we're actually up for some awards through our architects. So I hope we'll hear more about that in the coming months. I think it's important to know that since we've been open, we have seen 360,000 people come through our doors, which is phenomenal. That is a 60% increase over our pre-COVID numbers, which is wonderful for any town. You know, I feel like working in a town of about 20,000 people is my sweet spot, and we've not had that kind of service given at the libraries that I've worked at before. They're all wonderful in their own way, but 360,000 people is a lot. The other thing that's important to know is that our meeting rooms are incredibly busy. We are filling a gap in our community that we maybe didn't realize that we had such a large need for. So I mentioned that we have 7 meeting rooms, and then we also have other spaces. We have smaller meeting rooms, we have tables, but we hosted 6,000 non-library meetings during our first year that we were open, which is pretty spectacular. And let's see, anything, oh yeah, so I did want to mention, this is actually a picture that I took. We usually use professional photos when we're doing a presentation, but this is my husband right here. He's sitting there reading a magazine, making himself comfortable, but we came to visit this library in April of 2023 because I'm a librarian, and you go visit libraries on the weekends, right? You want to see the new, the fun, or really just any library if I'm honest. But we came down here, and as we're walking out, he says to me, "You need to run this library." And I kind of laughed at him because we lived in Wethersfield, and there was already a great director here, but here I am, almost exactly a year later, and I am just so happy to be here. So when we built our building, we built it for the next 100 years. And I think there's one thing about Rotary that I really, really loved when I would go to the meetings, and it was what we would say at the end of the meeting, right? Is it the truth? Is it fair? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And is it beneficial to all? And I think when we think about library service, we don't always ask it in those same questions, but those are the kinds of questions that we ask ourselves when we are providing library service. So when this library building was built, we wanted something that would last for the next 100 years. So we have some specific features and I would say benefits of this building that I wanted to point out. And these are the things that I don't know by heart yet, but I'm getting to know the building, as you know, especially since we had a flood my second week on the job. So we are all electric and net zero ready for an all renewable future. We have bifacial, which are double-sided solar panels that are on our roof, and they generate 40% of our electric. They are on a portion of our roof that is white, and it's colored that way so that it can reflect light. And that allows us to give off more renewable energy. We also have concrete that is made of 30% glass bottles. So when you walk on the concrete outside, you can't see it, but that is kind of an amazing thing. I never knew you could make concrete out of recycled bottles. We also have natural light throughout. We have a sustainable green roof, and that reduces heat and absorbs stormwater. And then we also have fret on our windows, which makes it safe for birds, and actually also helps in cooling the building. So we really wanted to have a space that will work well for us in the next decades and also over the next 100 years. We also obviously have a library mission statement, and we have 3 core values, which are lifelong learning, community, and inclusivity. So hang on just one second, because I don't have the mission statement memorized yet, but I will soon enough. Okay, so our mission is to be an essential place for lifelong learning and a vibrant hub for knowledge, culture, and connection for everyone in our community. We do this by staying committed to 3 core values: lifelong learning, community, and inclusivity. So I like to think of lifelong learning as kind of that active journey throughout life. We provide programs from birth to infinity, and we encourage everyone to use the library no matter what stage of life they are in. And we do consider that when we're planning programming, and we like to make sure we have something for everyone. Community is also who we are, it's where we are, it's who we serve. Many of the people that work at our library are of the community, but you know what? Getting our building built was of our community. So we are very much of our community and for our community, and that is very important for us. And we want to partner with our local government, with local nonprofits to share resources and highlight the best things about our community. And then also inclusion. That is a foundational principle for public libraries, and I think it has gotten a lot of press lately, but it really is important because we are committed to including everyone. And we want to value and respect people for the skills that they have and the things they want to learn, the experiences that they've had in life, and all of their perspectives. So we do that by providing a variety of resources. So what I included up here, on the left-hand side, you'll see these are just a sampling of our museum passes that we have. So you can use your library card to receive free or discounted access to these museums, both in Connecticut and also some in the city. We also have a subscription to the Digital New York Times, Consumer Reports, Canopy. If you like to watch classic movies or indie movies, that streaming service is for you. You can also access it through your smartphone and then stream it on your regular TV, which is great. We have the Wall Street Journal, we have Libby. How many of you read ebooks on a Kindle or other e-reader? Awesome. You know, people, when they hear that I actually like to read both print books and ebooks, are like, what? How could you possibly read ebooks? It's convenient. I absolutely respect that people want to get their books in a different format. So, of course, we provide Libby, which is Overdrive. They provide the bulk of our ebooks. And I don't know if you all have heard about this, but there is talk and work being done in Connecticut to bring about a bill that will help us potentially reduce the cost of ebooks to our communities. So ebooks cost a lot of money for us to provide. So libraries pay 3 times what a consumer would pay. So if I'm gonna go buy a book on my Kindle and I can maybe get it for $9, the library is probably paid $50 for that. And then it can circulate, and I'm guesstimating, but we pay a lot per title. And we can circulate it 26 times and then it disappears. And that is the way it is for all libraries all over the country. So here in Connecticut, we are trying to do something about it. We have not yet been successful, but I'm not giving up hope. And I'm hoping that we can work on something that will help all libraries get ebooks at an equitable cost. I think a really good way to describe it is, let's say that the town hires someone to pave a road, and they charge 3 times more than what you would pay to have your driveway paved, and in 2 years, the road just disappears. That's kind of what we're dealing with the ebook. So it's a fight that we are willing to, I guess, fight for lack of a better word, although that's never how I like to view things. But anyway, we're working on that. So Hoopla is a really nice resource because they have a digital collection, so you can get ebooks, audiobooks, all of that, but there are no holds and no waiting. So Overdrive works Libby works very much like our print books. We have X number of copies. If you'd like to check it out and it's available, you can. If not, you just get on a waiting list and you place a hold, and when it's available, then you'll be notified. So Hoopla, don't have to worry about that. You can check out anything in their catalog at any time, no holds, no waiting. Does anybody have any questions about these resources or others? Yes.
So, quick question, if Hoopla has this available,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you switch completely to Hoopla as opposed to Libby? Is there something you get on Libby
Sure.
that you don't get with Hoopla?
Yes. And so we don't necessarily get to select the catalog that Hoopla has. So we pay for the service and they have specific books that are available. They may not have all of the bestsellers. And we know people want the bestsellers. Periodically they will, and occasionally they will have books that are current bestsellers. But we generally have to purchase those separately through Libby. So it depends on what you like to read.
You didn't mention the business center yet.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. So on our second floor, we have a business center, and we have faxing, printing, copying, scanning, all available free of charge. We just charge for the prints, I think 15 cents for black and white and 50 cents a page for color. But that is a nice feature to have because I don't think there's a close business center around here. There is a UPS store down on
East.
East Street. Thank you. But the library, it's free mostly.
How do
So
you-
yeah.
How do you stay in business if you spend $50 for a title? It costs you $2 every time it goes out, and you're not getting any late fees anymore. So
We do still get.
You
late
still get late
We
fees.
do, yes, yeah. But with the ebooks, there are not late fees because it automatically returns to the library on
That's
its
what I
due
mean.
date.
For
Yeah.
those ebooks,
Yeah.
they're costing you $2 every time an ebook goes out the door because you're renting it.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, we have a budget that we stick to for our ebooks, and, oh, I'm so sorry, we don't go above that. So, yeah, we just pretty much have a budget and we stick to it. And I think what that means is that over the years, as these become so expensive, it's just fewer titles that we can buy, which is unfortunate. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to come to some sort of agreement with the publishers and, libraries in general will be able to continue to provide this resource because people want it. So yeah, unfortunately, when we have to make cuts, we do have to kind of look across the board. Right now, we're not making any decision about that, but yes, it is something we have to think about all the time as a library. Because it's so funny, people think, oh, we're a library, but we're also running a business, right? And so we do have to think about it like that. Even though people are not paying for our service directly when they come in, we still have lots of products that we are selling. Yes?
If they charge every library the same price, the same fee, is there, what is
So there's a
your
fee to use
power to negotiate cheaper rate?
So there is a fee to use the platform that we have to pay every year, and then we buy the individual titles. And that is going to vary from library to library depending on, what titles their patrons want to read. If it's a bestseller, it's likely going to be more expensive than something that's been in print for a while, so it does vary.
So in terms of the size and usage, there's no variation in terms of how you can negotiate?
No, and I would say because we are an individual library, we're not part of a consortium, so we buy individually. But when I worked at Berlin Peck, we were part of a consortium of 30 libraries, so the titles were purchased for all the libraries, so they had to share. And each individual library could purchase additional titles for their own patrons. But here, everything we purchase is for our patrons. Any other questions about that? Yeah.
On that subject, I guess, what are the pros and cons of joining a consortium? And is there a reason why, or is New Canaan considered doing that in order to share the costs with
Sure.
others?
So, you know what? It's something I've had in the back of my mind, but I haven't talked to anyone about that. We haven't had that conversation. I did ask, is there a reason we're not part of a consortium as part of my learning and listening? And I'm not 100% clear on that yet. There are pros and cons, right? So when you are a consortium, you usually have better buying power, but then you also, in the case of the consortium I was a part of before, you have to share those resources with everybody. So right now, I think we're in a good position because our patrons have access to our ebooks and the wait lists are not as long. Once you start buying in a larger group of libraries, then the hold lists become longer. So right now it makes sense for us to continue buying for our own, but you know what? Over time, as we have to look at our budget, those are all things to consider for sure. Thank you for asking that. So I think what we're known for in this community is providing programs for all ages. So, we do summer reading, we do story times, we have programs for children with special needs. We also have a teen space for studying. We actually got a letter from a teen recently, and he was lobbying the library for longer hours on Sundays because that is where the teens come to study. And I loved seeing this letter because not only did this person have such great enthusiasm for using the library, but I now know kind of what it's like to be a student in this town. They play sports, they're very involved, they're very active, and they're like, oh wait, it's the weekend, I better do my homework. And they love to come to the library to do it. And I'm not saying that studying is not a priority for them, but what I'm saying is their lives are busy. And I love that they come to our library. It's the place they think of to come and study. Also, when we were closed for the flood, I had a parent reach out and say, now that the library is not open, where are our students going to go? And I really appreciate that they rely on us for that. That means a lot in this community.
We're going to study in a 7,000 square foot house.
So I will admit that when I was in high school, I just studied at home. I didn't have the luxury of such a fantastic library to go to. So obviously we do things for everyone. We do programs inside the library, outside the library. We do outreach at Waveney Inn. We go to the schools for summer reading. We work with various partners in the community. I just had a meeting with Gina Bloom, who is with Staying Put New Canaan, on Tuesday to talk about how we can partner together, and we've been providing programs with them recently. I think the one thing that people really love about our library is that we are able to offer high caliber programming. So for example, we had Jeanette Walls on April 1st, and I wasn't able to see her presentation, but people raved about her. And if you don't know who she is, she wrote the book Glass Castles, and it was really her memoir of growing up in a family that was always on the move. And if I remember correctly, because I read the book many years ago, she was riding in a taxi in New York City and saw her parents living as homeless people. So that was very impactful on her, but she was a fantastic speaker. And we've got language classes. You know, we're just wrapping up a French class. I heard that Italian language classes are coming. So just something to put on your radar. We're gonna have musical movies in May where we show classic musicals, and we're hoping to offer some programming outside this summer. So on the note of, you know, kind of how we finance the library, we are an association library, which we're not a municipal library. This means we are a public-private partnership. So the town of New Canaan provides 23 to 25%, 75 to 77% of our budget. And the library is responsible for fundraising 23 to 25% on any given year. So to that end, we do have fundraisers to raise money for our library operations and programming. So on April 25th at 7 p.m., we are featuring Lydia Bastianich. We are super excited to have her here. How many of you know who she is? Okay, a handful of you for sure. So she is a chef and restaurateur. She has a number of programs on PBS. That's where I know her from. Love watching her shows, but she is going to come to our library to share her new book, Lydia's From Our Family Table to Yours, and that has more than 100 recipes in it. Tickets are $100, and they include a copy of the book, and then there also is a $300 ticket with a meet and greet with Lydia. So we are very excited about that. And then our spring edition is back this year, and we have a debut author. It's Vanessa Chan, and she'll be talking about her book, The Storm We Made. That is going to be actually out on our Anderson Terrace, so right in front of the library green, which we are so excited about. And we're going to have a Malaysian-themed lunch that's going to be prepared by Marcia Selden Catering, and it's going to be under a tent out on our terrace. And that is on Wednesday, May 22nd. And then finally, I'd like to share about a special event that we are doing this year, and it is Groove on the Green. So our furniture arrived 2 weeks ago. And the meeting I mentioned that I had on Tuesday was actually out on the green in one of the green Adirondack chairs. It was a delightful day, and it is such a beautiful place to spend time. So if you haven't been there, today not so beautiful, but I encourage you to come no matter what. Come to the library. But we are having an event called Groove on the Green, sorry. And we are going to be featuring a Latin jazz band, a 12-piece band, and we are also going to have dance lessons. Are any of you familiar with the event they used to do at Lincoln Center, Midsummer Night Swing? Okay, yes. So it's kind of our version of that. Music, dancing, picnicking. It's free for the community, so we encourage all of you and invite all of you to come and celebrate the opening of the Green with us and to kick off our summer here in New Canaan. So the band that we are going to be having is from Hartford, and I believe we're also going to have Arthur Libner. I don't know if any of you know him. I think he might be local. He's a vibraphonist. So festivities start at 5 o'clock and it will go from 5 to 10 p.m.
What day is that?
That is Memorial Day weekend, and it's May 25th. So it's the Saturday, May 25th. And that is all I have for today. And I'm almost out of time, but I'm happy to take questions.
How does the New York Times and Wall Street Journal subscription work? Is that, if you're a member, do you get access to the digital edition?
Yes, you do. So you just need your library card, yes.
Is there a limit to how many can have access at one time? Like,
No, I don't think so. Nope.
Do you have to be on site at the library to use it?
No.
No, you can do it from home.
Yeah, you can do it from
So
home.
the $300 we spent, we're
Yeah.
only spending for that is, but we don't need to spend, is that what you're trying to say here? Just
Don't tell
couple
the New York
business owners
Times.
over here that are,
Yes. But you know what? That is really a nice benefit of the library. I think
Yeah.
sometimes people think, what's in it for me? Or, what can I get? But every little bit counts, right? I mean, I know that I had a subscription to the New York Times, and my husband was like, do we have to keep paying for that? I'm like, actually, it turns out we don't have to keep paying for that. So, you know what? It counts, and it matters. So, yes. Same for the Wall Street Journal.
I have to say,
Yeah.
I was on the town council when we were, when this was being developed, and I was struck by the people who were having a tough time with us spending $10 million on the library, saying, how can you give them $10 million? And I was like, them? What do you listen to them?
It's us. Yeah.
Them, it's
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And so could you talk a little bit about this notion of the public-private partnership and the difference between that and a municipal
your
library?
backbone was appreciated.
So a municipal library is supported 100% by the municipality. So for example, when I worked at Berlin Peck, it was a municipal library. And so our entire budget was funded by the town of Berlin. In some areas, a municipal library is a library district, which means that they have their own mill rate and they receive the money directly from the real estate taxes and fund their library, and the library can operate autonomously and make their decisions. Here in Connecticut, we have the option of being an association library, which means that we are the public-private partnership. And what that means is that the town provides a certain amount, which varies from town to town, and then the library is responsible for fundraising the rest of the money that they need to operate their building. So in our case, we have to raise close to $1 million a year in order to pay for, keeping our lights on, paying for programs, paying for events that we put on, paying for some of our collection. So we actually use a lot of the money that we raise to actually pay for library service. Because we are also running a business in the sense that we have a staff to pay and insurance and, 401k match and all of those things to provide. So our budget actually gets quite large. I think we are about 3.6 million right now. So just something to think about. I know that sometimes it's hard for people to understand, like, oh, I have to pay for this event and not for that event. But the library does have to, make up that $1 million every year. And we do that in a way that, we want to make events that are accessible, but also, things that people want to see. So something like the Lydia Bastianich that I mentioned earlier helps us pay those operating expenses. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Will you stay late for other questions for
yeah, of
people? Because it
course.
is 1:30, so I'm gonna ring the bell. But if anybody has questions, please come on up and.